This is the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast with your host, Kevin Murray.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. On this episode, we have a special guest that is a proud member of the Fantasy Sports Writers Association who contributes fantasy and sports betting analysis across several ESPN platforms, including the Fantasy Focus Football podcast. It's Eric Moody. Well, thank you for joining me, Eric.
No, happy to be here. Love to take some time. Anytime that I can talk about fantasy football with other people and just kind of share some lessons learned along the way, I am always down for that. So thanks again for the invite. But how are things in your world?
It's going well. Going well. Just went to LA for the SFB live down there, so that was fun. We'll talk a little bit more about Scott Fish Bowl as we get going. But I've enjoyed your content for several years now. You're easily one of the best follows on Twitter. You bring so much balance when it comes to great fantasy football analysis, but you also inject and infuse some pop culture and some funny tweets in there. So it's been a pleasure following you over the last few years, and so it's exciting to have you on here.
Oh, no, absolutely. Yeah, thanks again for the invite. I'm glad that you mentioned the little bit of pop culture, a little bit of nostalgia. I love putting those tweets out there. And you know what? I'm very shocked that a tweet about the dine-in Pizza Hut would have that much engagement. But hey, you never know, right?
No, I love it. It's a great blend, and it's always fun to see what you're putting out there. Oh, but so rewinding back to your youth, growing up in Alabama, were you a big sports fan as a kid?
I was, yes. Sports was always on in my house. And this may surprise a lot of people, but really the first sport that I fell in love with and watched and would listen to on the radio all the time was actually basketball. So I remember watching, Michael Jordan, like in his prime, David Robinson, Hakeem Olajuwon, all those other greats, like in the early 90s. And I played basketball growing up before I played football. You may laugh at this, but my nickname was Magic Moody. I kid you not.
I love it.
So I also began kind of watching the NFL, and I'm a long-time New Orleans Saints fan. So again, sports was always a big part of my life growing up. Played basketball constantly, and again, I couldn't tell you there wasn't a time where an NBA or NFL game wasn't on somewhere in the house.
That's awesome. No, I can relate to that for sure, especially in the '90s when you're referencing the NBA. Good times for sure. Magic Johnson. I got a chance to meet him once at a 24-hour fitness club that he was part owner of, and in fact, I won a trip to Hawaii from him. So I got a video clip with me and him talking about how he was going to come to Hawaii with me. It's pretty funny. So good times. But so how did sports and athletics shape your mindset and influence your path in life?
Yeah, I would say my decision to play football like in high school, then I had a chance to play in college for a few years. I would say really shaped my mindset in nearly like all aspects of life. I would say for one, it showed me the importance of having, discipline and work ethic. Teamwork, and how to collaborate with others, that applies on the football field. And again, really in all areas of life. But I'll say most importantly, resilience and perseverance. Football and life really involves, I would say facing challenges, setbacks, and adversity. But also like strategic thinking and decision making. Because you think about this when you're playing sports, whether it's football, basketball, you're in a position where you have to make quick decisions on the court or on the field. And I think that's a great trait to have, again, personally and also professionally. And I would say leadership and accountability, those are other lessons that were learned that kind of influenced my mindset, but also like goal setting and achievement, because you really learn to work towards specific goals and you ultimately feel that satisfaction of accomplishing them. So those are some things off the top of my head and really how it impacted me and kind of shaped my mindset.
That's great. So when did you first discover fantasy football or fantasy sports?
Yeah, it's a funny story here. So I was working as a financial advisor at a Chase Bank. You go into the Chase Bank or Bank of America, any kind of bank, and you've got the financial advisor that's there. So I was that guy. And so I had a new hire who shadowed me for a few days. So we were chatting, and he asked me if I ever played fantasy football. I said, no, I haven't, but I've heard of it. So he began telling me about this great league that he'd put together. So he ultimately ended up sending me an invite. I joined the league, Kevin, and just like all of us out there that are watching or listening, I was immediately hooked, into fantasy sports. I
Yeah.
even went on to join like a fantasy basketball league before the season ended, so I could continue to play fantasy sports all year round. And so the name of this person is Sean. Since then, he's become like one of my best friends. I was even a groomsman in his wedding, so that's how close we are.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So yeah, so you are the ultimate example of someone pivoting career paths and
Mhm.
you're going from working in financial services and then diving right into the fantasy sports industry. How difficult of a decision was that for you?
Yeah, it was a difficult decision. It kind of goes through stages. Try to condense it down like as best as possible, and I guess just kind of really paint like a picture for everyone. But I think at this point, I had been like in the financial services industry for 10 years. Prior to making the transition to sports media full time. So, I started off as a financial advisor. I'm out there trying to build a book of clients. Had minimal success. I worked at JP Morgan, and Merrill Chase. So, eventually, I moved to USAA. I worked as a call center financial advisor and kind of finally tasted some of that success, that I was looking for, and eventually found myself in a management role at the company. I was always very passionate, and I'm still am to this day, really about like performance coaching and like employee development. You want to see the people on your team win. That's a sign of a good leader, in my opinion. And the department that I worked in, though, it really changed dramatically. Following like an acquisition of the mutual fund side of the business at USAA, sold that off to Victory Capital. The wealth management business and managed money portion was sold off to Charles Schwab. So that was a tipping point for me because I was much more open to transition out of the industry if the right opportunity popped up. And so, one big takeaway I'd like for everyone to have, before diving in like a little bit deeper, is that it's never too late. You look at the average age of a person who changes careers, it's actually around 39 years old. And so a lot of people kind of reach that middle of their career and they may feel that things are a little stagnant. And I started creating fantasy content. It was back in 2015, but my first like full time role did not come until May of 2021. Where I was brought on to Pro Football Network as a senior fantasy analyst, and then like 5 months into that role, I transitioned to ESPN as a on air talent and writer. Again covering the NFL, NBA, and WNBA from a fantasy and sports betting perspective. But that kind of in a nutshell is kind of where the pivot happened, Kevin.
Yeah, well, you have contributed to so many influential brands in the fantasy industry. Gridiron Experts, DLF, Fantasy Data, RotoViz, 4for4, The Athletic, Pro Football Network, and obviously that's led to you working with ESPN. What has this journey been like for you, working with so many different influential brands, and then how has your experience been with ESPN thus far?
Yeah, it's I would say I'll kind of start off with like all the different kind of companies that you named off and just kind of talk, about the ESPN experience. But, I just think back, like since 2015, it's like I've written, probably 600 plus articles. I've done like 300 or more like live streams, like shows or podcasts or radio shows. So it's hard to believe it's been that much volume. But, I think back to Twitter and really how the traction I gained on Twitter led to like all those writing opportunities. I know the first one was Fantasy Football Locker Room, allowed me to get a ton of experience early on. Website doesn't exist anymore if anyone's trying to actually look for it. But to your point, it led to opportunities. Fantasy Pros. I was a featured writer, team correspondent. Did a lot of stuff with RotoViz, as you mentioned, and all those other websites. But I just really think just to give someone like a takeaway, if they have like aspirations to kind of work full time in the industry, and there's a lot more opportunities now just due to betting being legalized in so many states. But I think really anything is possible. If you manage your time properly. I accomplished all this with being married and having 2 kids, but I kid you not, coffee also helped too. But to kind of close the loop on your question, about the experience like at ESPN, I'm like it's been. A dream, come true. It's been excellent so far. It's like the holiday season. I feel like for me every day, and I feel very blessed, to have the opportunity to work, for the company, and it's something that I don't take for granted. But it's been really great being able to focus like all of my time, on covering and creating content, for the 3 sports that I cover, NFL, NBA, and WNBA. But it's also been great too, just having access to some of the resources that the company has, such as our stats and information group, and also just having access to the the full slate of NFL Nation reporters. So it's been it's been a heck of a ride so far, and kind of looking forward to what comes next. So hopefully that hits on the question that you asked.
No, you nailed it for sure. How did your experience playing football at the collegiate level influence your analysis and fantasy and sports betting?
Yeah, I would say the biggest influence is that I think one thing that's kind of frustrating, I guess, with the industry. I'll go ahead and bring this up is that you've got some that are diehard film junkies that are all about film. They don't care about advanced metrics or analytics. And you've got the other side of the spectrum where you got the analytics people who are just like analytics rule, forget film work. I just always felt like playing the game, and granted, I didn't play at the NFL level, but X's and O's are X's and O's, and playing in high school and college, I just always look at kind of marrying both of those worlds, kind of have an opinion of what I can see on film, what's happening on the field, and kind of pair that up with some of the analytics. I always like to think of it as playing the piano with both hands. You can create great music, playing with one hand, but when you use both of your hands, that's where really masterful creations take place. And so that's the approach that I've always taken. But I think something that's unique is that I always start my analysis and just kind of look at things like with the offensive and defensive line. Because whether someone wants to admit it or not, that really plays a part in all the other statistical goodness and fun stuff that we like to watch. Because if quarterback's not getting protection, but they're not going to be able to deliver the ball to the wide receivers, running backs aren't going to be as productive, without solid offensive line play. And so my analysis always starts there, and I kind of expand out.
That's really good. That's really good. And tell me about Dan Hatman's Scouting Academy. What's that?
Yeah, Dan Hatman, he's got a great academy that's out there. Scouting Academy for where if you want to learn how to break down film, or I would say like a process, repeatable process to break down film, that's really what the Scouting Academy is about, because they take students on every semester, and you can learn like a process to scout really all the different positions. And plus, he provides like a lot of other resources as well. And Dan's got a great background. I know he spent a lot of time with the New York Giants in their scouting department, and knows really a lot of folks like in the NFL. So you're going to be able to kind of watch videos from a lot of other like general managers, offensive coordinators, others that are in scouting that have been like in the industry working for real, for NFL teams. And so you're able to really gain a lot of insight. But again, just like anything else, it's you get what you put into it. So the more time that you put into it, the better off that you'll be from a analysis and film perspective. So
That's really cool. That's really cool. So, in regards to content, what do you enjoy most? Like, is it the research? Is it the writing? Is it the video work?
yeah, I would say for me, it's the video work. I look at it this way: the writing and the research are directly correlated, like to the video work. And by video work, I'm talking about like things like we're doing now. Talking about football, or if I'm on a radio show, like a podcast, or on air, like on an ESPN show. I really like the video work because you have an opportunity to really convey your opinions and recommendations like to an audience. And something else, I sold Cutco in college, had a lot of success doing that. I have like a professional sales background, worked as a financial advisor, was in a face-to-face setting for most of the time, but I did have some time where I was on the phone talking. So I just love like having the stage and having an opportunity to deliver my message and put together like a rational, well thought out argument on why you should see things the way that I do, whether it's talking about a team or player, fantasy football, NBA. It's just something that I love to do, and hopefully I'll have a chance to do kind of more of that as I continue my journey at ESPN. So,
Well, yeah, you're doing a great job. I've always been impressed with your work for sure, and it's been fun watching you rise up in the industry. Now, obviously, the industry isn't what it is without the passion for the game of fantasy itself. So, what do you love most about fantasy football or fantasy sports?
yeah, I would say the biggest thing is really the community aspect. I'm like, just look at it this way: a lot of people out there play like in a local league. It's really an opportunity to bring friends together, to bring family together, like every year. I'm like, it's a platform in a game that really fosters, I would say, engagement and interaction. And also, I just love like the competition and strategy. It gives really everyone a chance that's in that league to kind of showcase their skill and knowledge of the NFL. And every league that's out there, everyone kind of has on their phone the chat thread of everyone in the league, and the friendly trash talk and just comments throughout the year. And so that's really a great opportunity for especially for friends that people that may have been friends like in high school or in college. They may live in different parts of the country. I'm like, that's really one way that they kind of keep in touch, that community aspect, and catch up with each other, kind of during the NFL season. So I would say that's the biggest aspect that I love the most.
Yeah, to me, I agree that's the foundation of this game. I love it. So, what's your most memorable home league experience?
Yeah, I would say winning my first fantasy football championship and only my second season ever playing fantasy football and being part of that league. It was just it was a massive turnaround, basically from the toilet bowl, to the top of the mountain, winning a title. So.
That's awesome. Yeah, you gotta love those fantasy championships. What to you makes a great live fantasy football draft?
Yeah, I would say having it at someone's house, that's a must. You got to bring food and the beverages or beverage of your choice. Make it an auction draft. Make it a keeper league. Have unique scoring. You don't have to go as wild as but just add a little spin to it. But really make it an experience. Make it for where, hey, block out 6 hours. You're going to be here all afternoon participating in this, because nothing is worse when you got the guy, hey, I can make the draft. I only got like 3 hours. We got to get in and out. That takes away from the experience. Just say, hey, I'm going to be doing this the whole afternoon, and then really require every fantasy manager to be there in person. If you do all these things, you're going to have a great live fantasy football draft experience.
Absolutely. What's your favorite last place punishment idea, or something you've seen out there that just is mind blowing to you?
You know what? I'm fascinated by this the Waffle House last place punishment. I think it's brutal because you have to spend 24 hours there. You can deduct an hour, I think, by like eating like a waffle. And it's just something because it's other people involved, and you're going to have people that work at the Waffle House that are going to be like, what is this person doing? Why is this person still here? And so you've got that element. And then it's something that can be documented. Then you got your buddies coming in there, probably with their smartphones, taking pictures, recording videos. And it's just really like creative. And it's something for where I think it could rally that person saying, you know what, I cannot come in last in this league for next year. It's like you have that person for where, they may come out and, be the best team in the league that following season. So I
love it.
That's what comes to mind.
Yeah, for sure. What or how long would it take you to get out of there?
Whew, I don't know. I'm thinking about those waffles, and I'm thinking about all the calories there for eating those waffles. So I don't know. I don't know. Part of me is like, you can get in and out, but I'm thinking 24 waffles, I'm going to have like a stomach ache. That's a lot of calories. But, I think I could probably try to hang there for 6 to 8 hours, assuming that I could bring like a phone or a laptop or something like that. I think I could hang. But the question is, would I want to hang out at a Waffle House for like 8 to 10 hours? That is the question, right?
What an experience, for sure. Now on another note, you just recently participated in the Dallas Live event for Scott Fishbowl. How was that experience for you?
Yeah, it was an awesome experience. I would say the biggest takeaway, it was just great having a chance to meet just all the other content creators who live in the area, and just kind of other people. Many of them were on Twitter, and some of them I met even like followed me. Just being able to kind of meet them like in person, because it's funny, you interact with so many people year after year, and you're like, I haven't had a chance to meet this person, but it's just like you already kind of know the person, but when you meet it just adds a different element to it. So I'll leave you with this, Kevin. So for anyone that's watching or listening, if you have a chance to attend a live Scott Fishbowl draft, I recommend that you take the time to do so.
For sure. No, I just flew from Seattle down to LA for that draft, and again, same thing. Just amazing people down there. A lot of people I've reconnected with, people I've met for the first time, and so a great event. Wherever you are in the country, it's definitely something I recommend. I hosted the Seattle draft last year, and again, it was amazing to see how many people were local to me that I didn't realize how close they were. So it was fun. Everything about Scott Fishbowl is pretty special. So let's dive into some rapid fire questions. I'll just rip off a question. You let me know what comes to mind. Whose content did you consume most when you were just consuming fantasy football content before you got into the industry?
Rapid fire style, like Evan Silva, Sigmund Bloom, Matthew Berry.
Good, good, good. Great names for sure. Name a person in the fantasy industry that you would want to watch a football game with, just to hear their insight and perspective on the game.
Yeah, I would say Sigmund Bloom. That's the name that kind of popped in my head. Like On the Couch from Football Guys is the podcast I look forward to every single week whenever I started playing fantasy football. Haven't had a chance to be on the couch yet. It's a bucket list item for me, but Bloom would be the guy.
I love it. Name two people that you would love to tailgate with before a game.
Easy. First one would be Nando DeFino with the Athletic, and then Daniel Dopp. So that'll be a very fun tailgate before the game.
Yeah, I like that combination. That's good. Who in the fantasy industry would you want to meet in person that you haven't yet?
Ooh, that I haven't. I guess Nando would be one. We talk a lot, but I have yet to meet him in person. Before meeting Matthew Berry, he would be one that was on the list, but I had a chance to meet him whenever I went up to Bristol. I would say, Scott Fish would be one. Just given everything that he's done for the industry. From a charitable standpoint, and just with the Scott Fish Bowl. And Jake Seeley's another one. Interacted with Jake quite a bit, during my time at the Athletic, but haven't had a chance to meet him in person. So those are some names off the top of my head.
Yeah, great people for sure. Name a few people that have had a massive impact on you during your journey within the industry.
Yeah, I'm going to mention Nando again. That time at the Athletic was was huge. I was blessed and fortunate to have that opportunity when it popped up, and really opened doors and other avenues that I was able to pursue. And so, again, I worked closely with him and Jake Seeley. We did the Athletic Fantasy Football podcast, and again, Nando just knows so many people in the industry. I would say Matthew Berry too would be another one. I was a couple of years obviously into the content creation game, where I had a chance to finally interact with him. And I'm going to drop the name of a platform. You're like, I haven't heard that name in a long time. Cue the Obi-Wan gif, but Clubhouse. I had a Clubhouse chat with Matthew Berry and Scott Fish. So Berry reached out because I think someone that was supposed to do it had to back out. And he's like, hey, can you fill in and help with this? And I was like, absolutely. And it may have been like, I think like 2 p.m, and this thing was going to go down like at 6 o'clock. So,
Wow.
I was available and I was going to make time either way. But, having a chance to interact with him and kind of show him kind of what I'm about from an analysis standpoint was huge. I would say last but not least is Mike Patch, who owns Gridiron Experts and who runs content for Fantasy Data. And so just being able to work with him on both of those sites, and at Fantasy Data kind of being like a writer, content creator, and kind of in that lead role, kind of cranking out a lot of content. So those are 3 individuals that had a massive impact on me during this journey so far.
That's great. Yeah. Clubhouse. Yeah, that is a blast from the past. It hit so hard and then it was gone just like that, right?
Perhaps like Threads, maybe.
Yeah, probably. Now, you are a guy that seems to love music. So what music is on your most listened to playlist?
Yeah, I would say like Led Zeppelin's up there, David Bowie. I'm also like a huge like nu metal fan. That kind of that hard rock from like the mid '90s to the early 2000s. So like a lot of Linkin Park, Mudvayne, bands like that. So those are ones that find themselves often at the top of my playlist. So
I love it. Where does your passion for music come from?
It came from my mother. She was a classic rock fan. Which I guess is kind of unusual back then, of being African American, kind of being into that type of music. But she was someone that really introduced me to a lot of those bands, like David Bowie. We had a chance to see Bowie on his final what would be his final tour, the Reality Tour back in 2003. So I think we saw him in early 2004. But just being introduced to like Jimi Hendrix, The Doors, Cream, Clapton, all those different bands. And it just kind of really resonated with me. And I know she was, she saw Led Zeppelin in Alabama, where I grew up. She grew up there too, and like in '73 on that tour. and I was close to going to Woodstock, but her mom wouldn't let her go to Woodstock. But so that's kind of where I get it from, and which kind of led to me wanting to play guitar, and music is a big part of kind of my personality and identity. And I'll tell you, if I wasn't doing all the fantasy football stuff like online, like I am now, I would probably be the guy that has like a music account and tweeting about that and kind of building a following with those kind of takes.
That's awesome. That's cool. It's definitely good to have stuff, healthy to have stuff outside of this
Yeah.
passion of football and fantasy sports for sure. But as for actual football, when it comes to drafts, it is draft season coming upon us. Name a quarterback that you're going to leave most drafts with this season.
Yeah, I like to play in a lot of super flex leagues. So I think Kenny Pickett is kind of like a sleeper or someone that I'm very comfortable as my QB2 or QB3. We all know about the year two. It's been historically been like a breakout age for quarterbacks that were selected in the first round. Like you look at some of the recent examples like Carson Wentz, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, those are some names, off the top of my head, and they've had a lot of success. So I look at Kenny Pickett and the situation that he's in with Pittsburgh, great coaching staff, playmakers surrounding him. He's someone that I could see kind of making that jump in year two. So
I like it. How about two running backs that you're going to leave most drafts with?
Yeah, Samaje Perine is one. I don't trust Javonte Williams in this this injury, despite what is being said in the media, because we all watched J.K. Dobbins last year who struggled. But Sean Payton likes to run like two running backs. He likes a committee. So whether Javonte Williams is healthy or he is not, Samaje Perine, in my opinion, will be involved in that backfield. And the Broncos' offensive line has been improved, so Perine's in a really, really good spot. And we look at his ADP compared to Javonte Williams. I'll take Perine all day. The second one is Rashad Penny, who's often like an afterthought in drafts, but he's in a great situation in Philly. They lean heavily on their stout offensive line in the running game. I believe that the Eagles led the league in rushing attempts per game like last year. So I think that's a trend that will continue in 2023. And I think Penny is being overlooked. You look at DeAndre Swift, he's not the most reliable option when it comes to his health. And so I really like Penny as someone that you can get late in drafts that could surpass expectations this year. So those are two names.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely a home run hitter. I'm a Seattle guy, so obviously his health's been an issue for years. But when he's in there, I mean, he is productive. So if he's healthy in Philly, I definitely think that's a great bargain. How about two wide receivers that you think you'll leave most drafts with?
Yeah, I know Jerry Jeudy is one of them. Like he's entering his fourth NFL season, has the potential to become a fantasy star. Again, I think Sean Payton is a huge upgrade for this team. And I think he's going to really propel this Broncos team where we thought that they could go last year. And so I think Judy's success is obviously contingent on receiving competent quarterback play. And I look at Sean Payton, and again, I'm a Saints guy, so I've been watching him for years, is that he's got the type of personality that I think is enough to protect Russell Wilson from himself. We all cringe when we watched that Subway commercial like last year. So I think he's going to be able to protect Wilson from himself. Also, to close the loop on that before, touching on my second receiver, you look at Jerry Jeudy from weeks 13 through 18 last year. This is a wide receiver that averaged 7.5 targets and 18.5 fantasy points per game. So a breakout season is imminent. I believe we'll see it in 2023. But I also like Rashad Bateman. Like I know the Baltimore Ravens have a ton of targets or wide receiver targets for Lamar Jackson. You got Bateman, you got Odell Beckham Jr., you got Zay Flowers, and we can't forget about Mark Andrews. But I look at Bateman at his average draft position and the potential that he has that we saw glimpses of last year. And assuming he'll be healthy going into the season, I think he's someone else that could also exceed expectations. So those are two players that I draft on my teams often in the summer.
Yeah, I mean, these are all players that are affordable. If you want to get them, you can get them in drafts. So I love it. How about a tight end?
Yeah, I really like Jawan Johnson. He had a breakout season in 2022. He showed significant improvements, really after being like a non-factor in his first two seasons in the league. But you look at Johnson's usage, it increased notably. He had 65 targets, like 42 catches, 508 receiving yards, and 7 touchdowns, finishes the tight end 15. And I think one thing that's really fascinating, if you look at tight ends with a minimum of 60 targets. You look at Johnson, he ranked near the top of the league in yards per reception, average depth of target, and touchdown receptions. And we also saw how Derek Carr was very productive with Darren Waller in Las Vegas. So I think we'll see a similar, kind of connection between this duo in 2023. But I'll kind of close the loop on this. One thing that Johnson that I read is that he requested for film of like Julian Edelman to prepare for his role as like a slot receiver slash like tight end hybrid for this year.
Wow.
So it really shows like his dedication. Hey, this is a guy who's looking to improve and adapt to his new responsibilities. And we all saw how productive Hunter Renfrow was, who had a similar role with the Raiders back in 2021. And so I really like Johnson as a late round tight end, or a tight end to pair with another one that you drafted late and taking a committee approach. So.
That's great. That's great. Again, all players that you can get out there in your draft. So definitely listen to Eric on these ones for sure. Now, you've certainly had a unique journey within the fantasy sports industry, getting to where you are, paving your own path towards ESPN. What advice do you have for aspiring fantasy football analysts and people that want to get more involved in the industry?
Yeah, I really want to take some time and answer this question thoroughly. So I'll move as briskly as I can, but I think this is important because this is like a direct message, like on Twitter, I get like often, especially when I tweet out like certain threads, about being a content creator and things like that. So I do want to share like 18 lessons briefly, I learned
awesome.
along the way that
great.
help someone who's listening right now who has similar aspirations. I would say the first one, Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hour rule. So Gladwell said, hey, you can become an expert in any skill, by practicing the right way, for at least 10,000 hours. Excuse me. And so I just knew that, I needed a venue to create content to become an expert. And so just keep that in mind if you have aspirations. But you got to look for websites, too, that are looking for content creators that are going to give you a platform to be able to share your opinions. I would say, build a brand on social media. I would say your story is unique, so use it. You should also comment, like, and engage with those that you aspire to become. Like, great comments are important because they're going to garner the most attention for you and possibly your retweet. So don't make enemies and make friends. We all see some of the silliness that goes on social media and the fantasy football community at times. But I think it's important to be very cordial and build relationships in the space. This is going to lead to more writing opportunities, live stream opportunities, podcast opportunities, but most importantly, if you want to work in the industry, job opportunities. So something else, set SMART goals. And I consider a SMART goal something that's specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. You got to have goals to get to where you want to be. Time management is something that's important. Find a system that works for you in order to really maximize your time. Find a mentor. This is going to accelerate things a lot faster than going at it on your own. Also, implement editorial feedback quickly. Don't be the person that allows your ego to prevent yourself from getting better. So you got to take the feedback and implement it. You're getting the feedback for a reason. I would say something else. Put together a performance improvement plan. I think these kind of have like a negative connotation at times, like in corporate America. But here's the point: you want to identify areas you want to improve in, whether it's podcasting or live streams. You get where I'm going with this, and that's something I did every single year as a content creator. What am I going to get better at for this year? So number 10, create or join an inner circle. You really want to align yourself with others who have similar goals and aspirations. I would say number 11, have a professional background for videos or live streams. If you're going to do video, you got to have like the right background. You can't have like, dirty clothes behind you or something that's not aesthetically pleasing. So again, you want to use those who you admire as inspiration. And so you also want to invest in a quality microphone and camera and perhaps even some lighting. If you're serious about building a brand, that's something you should invest in early on. Now, you don't have to go spend like thousands of dollars on it, but at least get some nice gear and people notice that and they appreciate that. I would say number 13, diversify the type of content you create. 14, create a simple web page highlighting your professional experience. 15, be reliable. Never, ever miss a deadline. 16, consider writing about multiple sports. It's really important to be versatile. That's going to lead, to additional opportunities for where, if you can handle different things, again, more job opportunities, or content creating opportunities will come your way. And also get to know people through technology. Just set up a quick 30-minute Zoom meeting or Google Meet. with someone that you want to get to know better, no agenda. Hey, just go in. Hey, I just want to get to know you better, learn your story. I'll tell you mine. A meeting like that can easily change your life. And last but not least, if you're looking to make the move, I don't care how old you are. If you're 25, 35, 45, if you want to make the change, build the groundwork and the runway to make the change, because career changes aren't scary. So those will be my 18 tips for anyone with similar aspirations.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I've asked that question to a lot of influential people, and that was, you delivered that one home for sure. Knocked it out of the park. I love it.
Yeah.
So, Eric, is there anything we haven't covered that you'd like to share before we close things out here?
Yeah, I'm just let me just think for like a few seconds, and I'll just kind of rattle off stuff that's on my mind. I would say just with the team like at ESPN, I'm like, it's been, it's really been phenomenal. Just kind of having a chance to work with Field Yates, Mike Clay, Stephania Bell, Dopp, how I mentioned earlier, and even like Tristan Cockcroft and Eric Carabell. All of them are content creators that I've personally followed for years and have watched and heard them on podcasts and shows. And it's also been great, working over the past year with Liz Loza. Couldn't get that out, since she joined the company. And then that's just on the fantasy football side. You look at the betting side, having a chance to kind of work with Aaron Kate Dolan, Anita Marks, Doug Kazarian, Tyler Fulgham, and Joe Fortenbaugh. Even Andre Snellings too. I worked with him closely on the NBA and WNBA stuff. It's just an excellent team, like all around. It's been great to meet everyone. It's kind of taken some time to meet everyone since it's so many people. I haven't even touched on like the NFL Nation reporters and a lot of the producers and things behind the scenes. But I know that's want to kind of give all of them a shout out. Now let me think if there's anything else out there. I really can't think of anything else, Kevin. I can kind of give everyone a snapshot or a sneak preview of what could come this upcoming season, and I'll go wherever you need me to go, my man.
Yeah. Tell us what is in store for 2023, and tell us where listeners can find you.
Yeah, no, I can do that. So as far as like with this upcoming season, like I'll learn more about what that's going to look like here very, very shortly. But I'm assuming that it'll be eerily similar to like last year. For those that don't know what I did last year, I'll kind of give you kind of a quick rundown. So, I wrote the waiver wire column, at ESPN Fantasy, the NFL Daily Notes for fantasy football, which kind of would provide fantasy managers with maybe like 6 to 8 nuggets or newsworthy items that they need to know about. If they just need to take 10 minutes to get a quick update on what's going on, that was a perfect column for that, which was published every Monday through Friday morning. I would provide betting picks for all the NFL games, Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football, the Sunday slate. I appeared on the Fantasy Focus show, talking the waiver wire, with the team there. And I also appeared on This Just In, with Max Kellerman to talk about the waiver wire. And also co-hosted the ESPN Bet show on Sunday with Aaron Kate Dolan going through betting recommendations. So I'm assuming it will be something similar in 2023. Don't know yet, but whenever I find out, I'll definitely tweet that out so everyone knows. But if you're not doing this already, just stop what you're doing. Hit pause, whatever you need to do. So go follow me on any social media platform that's out there. Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Threads at Eric N. Moody. Kevin, you kind of touched on this earlier. I'm like, if you like any of the sports that I cover, from a fantasy or sports betting perspective, but also like a little bit of, 1990s, 2000s nostalgia, and the occasional music take every now and then, you'll be right at home.
For sure. No, it's a highly recommended follow. Absolutely. So again, Eric, absolute pleasure to have you on here. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. And I can't wait to see what's in store for you in 2023.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. Until next time, be sure to follow and subscribe to all of FFU's social media accounts for daily content.